Welcome back for another video. Today, we're going to be reviewing training camp day one. Football's finally back for Colts fans. It's been back for a couple days for a couple of other fan bases. Colts training camp started on July 26th, and we're going to talk about what happened in day one. So let's start with the quarterbacks, of course. Okay, so Gardner Minshew got first team reps on the first day of training camp. He went 4 for 4 with a touchdown in 11 on 11 drills. Anthony Richardson went 2 for 2 with a rush touchdown and a pass touchdown in 11 on 11. He also added a red zone touchdown in 7 on 7. So both the quarterbacks making stuff happen. I think coach said today was a lot of red zone work, so there weren't, any deep balls that were happening. But both guys were making it happen in the red zone. They were scoring touchdowns. It's good news for the offense. Usually early on in training camp, it's usually the defense that'll dominate, because for the defense, it's just see ball, get ball, especially when you have an offense that's trying to incorporate a brand new offense. They're going to need time to catch up. So the fact that they're making it happen on day one is great news. Keeping it on the offensive side of the ball, we're going to go with the O-line. And on the first day of training camp, the starting O-line was Bernard Raymond at left tackle, Big Q, Ryan Kelly at their normal positions, Will Fries at right guard, and Braden Smith at right tackle. The backup left tackle right now is Jake Witt, and the backup right tackle is Blake Freeland. Now, ideally, we want Big Q, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith to be who they're supposed to be, which is some of the best players at their position in the entire NFL. Now, Big Q stepped up last year. He had a good season despite the rest of the offensive line being more lackluster last year. But I think what we saw from that unit after Jeff Saturday came in, even though the team was losing, the offensive line started to play better for the most part. And I think they can build on that with this new coaching staff coming in. I think, fresh faces, fresh voices are going to have an impact. And I think this group, we have a second year left tackle coming in. We need Bernard Raymond to really step up this season. And from what we heard from minicamp, it looks like he's taking steps to not only be bigger as a person, but to be better as a player. Okay, so now we move on to the tight ends. The only real news coming from day one for tight ends is Drew Ogletree is back in training camp practice. Remember, he tore his ACL last season in training camp as a rookie. This is his second season coming back. And going into last season, after rookie mini camps happened, people were talking about Drew Ogletree maybe being the best tight end in the room. And after the 2023 offseason, we're talking about Jelani Woods, and everybody expects him to be the guy. But if Drew Ogletree can come back and be himself, we're talking about a 6'6" and a 6'7" tight end coming in, being freakishly athletic and being able to make plays, plus having Kylan Granson. So, me personally, I'm excited about this tight end room. I think having Drew Ogletree back in the fold with all these guys is going to have a major impact on the Colts season. Another thing that could have a major impact on the Colts season is whether or not Jonathan Taylor is going to be with us. Okay, right now, Coach Steichen said in his press conference after day one that Jonathan Taylor would be back at practice once he's 100%. Now, if he's serious, that's a little worrisome. But you also think there's a contract negotiation happening with Jonathan Taylor. So that's probably why he's not practicing and he was put on the physically unable to perform list. But honestly, I expect us at some point they're going to pay Jonathan Taylor and he's going to be back on the field before the end of training camp, before the end of the preseason. He's going to get some work in with the team. All right, now moving on to the defensive side of the ball. Our man Shaq Leonard is closer to being back than the team wanted anyone to know. He took part in all the periods today, all the practice periods. Now, granted, practice was only an hour long. Coach Steichen is trying to ease the team into practice because, he believes a lot of the injuries that happen in training camp happen in the first week. So there's a little bit of a ramp up period, especially with the new coaching staff. It's pretty much situations are situational. This situation, he's easing everybody into training camp. So practice was only an hour today. But Shaq Leonard did participate in all the periods of practice, including first team reps in 7 on 7 and 11 on 11. Now, reports do say that he's not fully himself on the field again, but he's close and he's progressing more every day. So that should be really exciting news for Colts fans. Jim Irsay just a couple of weeks ago on the Pat McAfee show was saying that Shaq Leonard would be back at some point. Was real vague about the fact that he kind of made it sound like he wouldn't be ready for week one. So the last couple of weeks, Colts fans have kind of been wondering, is Shaq going to be back? But by all accounts, after training camp day one, it seems like by week one, Shaq Leonard will be himself and he will be ready to go with the first team. A big part of that first team is going to be Kenny Moore, who had a little bit of a down year last year, especially for a defense that ended up top 10 in the NFL. Kenny Moore for himself had kind of a down year. I think even he would admit that. But in his first training camp practice, he made a great play on the ball and broke up a pass from Gardner Minshew to Michael Pittman Jr. in the end zone. And that's the kind of stuff we're used to seeing from him, is instinctual plays, great plays in the secondary, and we're going to need that with the youth that is in the secondary. Kenny Moore has to be Kenny Moore again. And talking about some of that youth, Juju Brents is the second round corner that the Colts picked in 2023. And with Isaiah Rodgers Sr. not being in the picture anymore, Stephon Gilmore not being in the picture anymore, Juju Brents is going to slide in as the number one outside guy. Now, he had to miss practice. The reason for that being he had wrist surgeries in the offseason, but all reports are saying he should be ready to go by the time week one comes around. He should get some action in training camp, late in training camp and in the preseason, and kind of get to the flow of things and be ready for week one. Somebody else that missed practice was Julian Blackmon, who is switching positions to strong safety. He might even take some reps at slot corner if he needs to at some point throughout the season. But he did miss practice today due to a hamstring injury. And Nick Cross actually took first team reps at strong safety with Blackmon out. I think that's interesting. Nick Cross was 20 years old when he was drafted last year in 2022. He didn't really play at all last year. He comes into this season and is immediately taking first team reps. And I think that's huge. He knows his defense. Gus Bradley and that defensive staff stayed in place. A lot of the guys that are on the defense stayed in place. So there's a lot of familiarity, and I think that's big. A lot of people were really high on Nick Cross last year in OTAs and training camp. I think the value that he can bring, even if it is splitting time with Julian Blackmon, might surprise some people, especially early on. He's not a name a lot of people know outside of diehard Colts fans, but I promise you, he's going to make some plays and you're going to know the name Nick Cross real quick. So there's a lot for Colts fans to be excited about after the first day of training camp. Of course, football season is back. That's enough reason to be excited. But there are a lot of things that happened today that Colts fans should enjoy. And going forward, I'm going to try to keep up day after day on training camp and giving out updates. So make sure to subscribe, have notifications on, and keep coming back for more Colts content. And I'll see you for the next video.